Okay, everybody, welcome to this evening's XAUUSD webinar. Tonight's webinar is Forex Trading Live Market Analysis. Just to give you a heads up what's coming up this week, we have tomorrow a webinar on Fibonacci, taking you through the Fibonacci tool, price roadmap, and how to identify the trend continuation patterns. So that's tomorrow's webinar, 7 p.m. Wednesday. And then Thursday, we have live Forex market review, more live Forex market analysis, okay, at 7 p.m. Thursday. That's what's coming up. Tonight is a live market analysis, so we'll get into it. Before we do, if you can all read through the disclaimer. If you're on our YouTube live chat, I cannot see the chat. I've given you a link though that you can join us in the webinar if you want to chat to me. So everybody, please read through the disclaimer. If you have any questions, just put them into the webinar chat or the question and answer box. I've got both open. Alrighty, let's move along. Now, if you don't know me, I can see some new names on there. Welcome. If you're new, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities, and I'm a full-time Forex trader. I've been trading the Forex market for more than 15 years now, mentoring for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is there on screen, duncan.cooper@acy.com. And you can connect with me through the week at our website, acy.com. Go to the Market News tab. Our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia, or you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are my personal handles. And if you get access to our Telegram channel, you can get access to analysis through there as well through the week. Contact Nathan Bray to get access to that. And if you want to get access to my chart layouts and templates for MT4 that you'll see me using tonight, then just contact Nathan and he will set you up. So I'll put Nathan's details in the chat. And there we go. Azu saying thank you for the New Zealand dollar. Yeah, I think I was saying if it didn't hold at 62, I think it went down to about 61.20. Might be heading back up to 62 though. So good. Hopefully made a nice profit on that. All right, so there's Nathan's details in the chat. And Edwin, you can't see my charts yet. I haven't pulled them up yet. So I'm just putting Nathan's details in the chat if you want to get access to the Telegram. And I'll head over to Forex Factory now. So hopefully we are changing. To Forex Factory. When my charts come up, just make sure you can see my charts. We'll be there in a moment. So on Forex Factory, I just want to quickly go through the news items for the day and tomorrow. Tonight, 10:30 p.m. for Canada. These are Queensland times. We have the CPI data, the inflation figures coming out for Canada. So anything with Canadian in it is going to be highly volatile. On the midnight, 12 a.m. Wednesday, US CB consumer confidence. And then another volatile one coming out tomorrow morning for the Aussie, 11:30, we have the CPI data. Now, it's not telling us what they're expecting. Maybe they don't know if it's going to go up or down. But the market will be clearly watching to see whether that goes up or down, because next week we have the cash rate decision next Tuesday. All right, so those are the big ones to consider, those inflation figure numbers coming out for Canada and then the Aussie over the next 24. All right, let's get to the charts. Hopefully you can see my charts coming up now, Edwin. I'll just take these numbers off. It's from something else I was doing. All right, I just want to first of all look at the dollar index, and we had a nice reversal last week. I just want to make sure, can everybody see my charts okay? Just raise your hands in the chat there. You can see my charts okay. Yep, great. Thank you. All right, so we did have a reversal week last week. So are we going to have a week up this week and put in a higher bottom here on the weekly chart? And this line here is day support. If you go to the day chart, we pull back to day support and the 62% level of this move up from last month. Now we have moved up last Friday to a higher top. Are we now just pulling back to put in a higher bottom? So monitor this. Are we coming down maybe to retest support once more to then come up this way? All right. Start of an uptrend forming, but we need to put a higher bottom in place. Of course, at least 50% of the makeup of the dollar index is for the euro dollar. So with that in mind, the euro dollar is probably mapping the inverse relationship of this, which I know it is, but we'll see that in a moment when we get to the euro dollar. So maybe the dollar is, whilst it's pulling back over the last couple of trading days, is potentially going to put in a higher bottom this week for a move up. S&P 500, it's pulling back to the 62% level of the last move up on the day chart swing here. And this line is the monthly high. This high here. So if we're going to continue up on the S&P 500, that level really needs to hold. So if you're looking for a dip, that is your dip at the moment, pulling back to monthly support in the 62% level of the day swing. So whatever your setup is to maybe move up from that level, if you're looking for an opportunity to buy. If you're looking for an opportunity to sell, then you're looking for that level of support there at 43.23, not to hold. You want it to move below, retest it to become resistance. So currently holding to an uptrend there, even though, yeah, we have had well, that was an update, but negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days pulling back at the moment. Okay. Let's go into the euro dollar then and have a look at the makeup of this. Now, last month's move, that was the range of last month. We actually load on the last day of the month and we've been moving up ever since. Just got above 110 last week, failed at the 79% level of the monthly range. You could even just drag the fib to the highest point at the moment. 109.96, 79% fib there. And there's a daily high there that we folks broke. And if you're any good at looking at patterns, we could be forming a head and shoulder pattern up here. Left shoulder, head to a lower bottom, coming up to potentially put in a lower top maybe. That's what I'm monitoring for the week. Move to the 4-hour chart. I'm just going to get rid of, well, if I'll leave that fib on, I just want to draw another fib in from high to low of last week. And 79% level is up here, very close to that left shoulder area. So 109.75 to 109.70 would be a great area to watch this week if we got up there for an opportunity to maybe short. Are we going to put in a lower top to the lower bottom that forms after failing at the 79% level of that larger range? So this is pretty much the inverse look of what we're seeing on the dollar index. So just monitoring at the moment. That's a very good level up there at 109.70 to 109.75. Worth monitoring that as we progress through the week. Now the euro yen, I did put out today to look for a dip down to 156, but it never dipped. So potentially that level now is null and void. Put that out on Telegram this morning. So what we're seeing on the daily, clear uptrends, just dropping to the weekly here. We've moved above weekly resistance. That will be support if we ever pull back. Next level of resistance of any form at the moment, if you squash your weekly chart in, is from back in 2008. There's a monthly low there at 158.59. So that's probably the level we're targeting. And on the day chart, last 2 trading days, we had these rejections. So I was trying to look for a dip inside the candle of today, but clearly that hasn't come around. So I will be monitoring at the moment for a pullback against the 4-hour trends to the 15. And where I was looking early in the day, 156 to 155.95 was the level I was watching when I had my fib drawn, but I need to readjust it to there now. So I'll still be watching down at 156 because we folks broke that area yesterday, but the 79% fibs now at 156.07. So that would be the area that would monitor at the moment for a very good area to watch for, a very deep dip. We've also got the 62% level and the central pivot points. That would be a very good level too. Two areas to watch intraday today if, use my right tool, if we can see a dip. You don't want to get caught. You're seeing price moving up, so you buy it at the top of the move and then price pulls back like it's doing right now. So you want to look for a dip. Those are two levels to clearly watch if we can dip. All right, to the euro pound, which is a little bit consolidatory. We're actually down at monthly and weekly support here. Reversal up week last week. And we are starting to put in a minor higher bottom here, higher top to higher bottom. We've actually traded down to weekly support today. A video I put out this morning, I said, look, for a dip back into that area where we could only dip down to weekly support, and we're heading back up. I would still watch, through the week, I would watch down at 85.65 to 85.47 if you want to trade this pair. That's the area of support there. All right. So I would certainly watch for another dip down into that area if it can offer you that. And then what happens then? Can we move up? All right. So at the moment, we're getting support at the central pivot point. You can be drawing a fib across that range. At the moment, we pull back to 50. With 62 levels at 85.62, so 85.62. So support starting at 85.65, weekly support, 62% level, that would be a good area to watch. So it's been very much bid up there, a little bit short of that area. This could still come down to want to come down into that area today. You can monitor that. That would be the best area to watch for support intraday today, if it can pull back and offer you the best price today may come in down in that area if it wants to dip. All right, let's move on to the pound. Now, I was looking down here early in the day, 79% fib in the figure. In early Asia, we were kind of getting towards there, but then something popped it up in Asia and we haven't gotten down to where support's been coming in at the moment. But we could still get down there today. Now, on the day chart, we are in an uptrend. We've gone a little bit lower top here to sideways. We haven't been able to quite get down to weekly support here at 126.79, a fraction short last week. The weekly chart will show you that we had a negative week last week. Doesn't mean to say we're going to have a week down this week. Sometimes we'll just have a negative week and then we're up the next week. So, I mean, if we do clearly break below 126.79 here, weekly support, we could be looking at a much more, deeper dip pullback to say a 62% level or a 79% level. That weekly trend is up, but we could be maybe in the corrective phase. As long as we hold above that top, then we're not. But if we move below that top, we are. So at the moment, support is coming in a little bit ahead of 126.79. You'll see that on the 4-hour chart here. These 4-hour lows. And got last month's high, last week's low, and 126.79 supports all in this area here. So there should be potentially strong support here if we traded down into that area at any time during the week. And I was hoping that we make, if I squash this in Friday's trading, we were getting support, and Wednesday, where are we? So that's Tuesday, Monday, Friday, we're getting support 127, dipping below, coming back above. Wednesday, same deal. Yesterday, we dipped below 127 twice, held to move back up. So that's the clear area where the buyers are holding the market. So with that in mind, I would be, now that the 4-hour trend, let's put in a little bit of a higher bottom there, drag your fib up that way. then monitor on the 15-minute here. Let's have a look where the 79% level is. All right, now that 79% level was fractionally below the figure, now it's slightly above. But looking at 12700 down to 12702, that would be a great level to watch if price was to dip, give you a nice retracement down the 4-hour swing. All right. Don't get caught at the top of the move. Look for a pullback within the 4-hour trend. Looking for a 4-hour trend continuation. So if I move back to my 4-hour, we're moving up. We're dipping down, looking to see if price can pull back to the 79. There's also a minor 4-hour bottom area there too. So that's this. That will be that area here. So that would be a great area to look if we can pull back. So Edwin, you're saying you took a sell at 127.40. Yep, well, I mean, it's pulling back. It's obviously failed to hold above yesterday's high. I mean, it's fine to be selling high up. With you know, you could be selling high up here with the anticipation that support might break. If that's your mode of operation. But just be aware that support is coming in at 127 down to 126.79. So if price moves into that area and then doesn't want to break, then, you know, manage your trade. But the pound dollar at the moment, you know, the pound expecting maybe interest rates are going to raise to 6%. We had a 50 basis point rise last week to 5%. And over coming months, anticipating that we may be moving up to 6%, and that would actually put the interest rate differential above the US. So that leads to a strong pound dollar. And just moving to the weekly chart. Weekly chart. We have an imbalance in here that formed last year. It started at the 130 level. So we could be heading up towards the 130 level at the moment. So if you can get long around 127, there's 300 pips to 130, assuming that 127 holds a support over the coming days and weeks. All right, so I have a little bit of a target up here at 130 long term, filling that imbalance. And if you go to the daily chart, and I'll just scroll it over, see this very large drop down here. So there's probably about, the imbalance started around about there. Still a good 380 pips of imbalance there at the moment that potentially needs to be filled. So just where I'm anticipating price might be targeting over long term. So if we do start to see a very nice trend start to move back up towards the high of the month, that's where we could be heading over the next couple of months. So, all right, that's what I'm looking at there on the pound. Canada offer a very nice dip back down to 127. And, you know, it may take, you know, maybe we can't get down to 127 this week. Maybe it might take a couple of days if you're just patient. I'm always patient looking for. And Edwin, I'm just reading your chats. So you took a buy at 127.40, not a sell. So you're not trading down. So 127.40. Yeah, it was a bit high up there, wasn't it? Not sure where your trend line break was. Where's your trend line break? You're looking kind of trend line breakthrough here. Are you still long that from there, or have you managed it? Oh, you drew the trend line from the 4-hour. odd like so. That's quite, not sure whether that's quite how you've drawn it, but it would have broken way before 127.40, but in any event, however you drew it, I'm sure it's broken. It's just how you're managing it. All right. All right, for those not in though, I would be looking down here. So hopefully for you, Edwin, it doesn't pull back to 127. But that would be the perfect area to watch from the pound. Moving to the pound yen. Now this is just holding to a clear day chart uptrend, a clear weekly chart uptrend, a clear monthly chart uptrend. We're actually moving above, moved and closed above this monthly level, 180.41. And next major level of resistance is at 188.80. How long can it keep going? You know, from a monthly, weekly perspective in terms of the swings, there's a monthly range pullback to about the in between 62.79% fib there, and we're already beyond the 127 extension. I mean, this is overextended, you know, that's that on the weekly across that monthly range. We are overextended, but it keeps moving up. So, and it's not showing any real strong sign that it's a short at the moment. So if you want to trade this, trade it to the long side, but be very aware that it is overextended. And last week I did try to look for a buy here above on top of 180.41 this day here. It didn't quite get down. But 180.41 last week started to act as support. We're now heading above daily resistance at 182.12. So that is your reference point now for supports. That daily top there at 182.12 for pullback. That 4-hour up move, if you draw a fib across the current move, I can see the 62% level lines up with that daily broken resistance. And we'll see it clearer on the 15. So that's the current 4-hour trend upward move. I'll keep dragging the fib up if it keeps moving up, but 79% level, nice overlap there at 182, and your day support at 182.12. So that whole area there would be, if that is a 4-hour top to pull back, that would be a great area to watch for a pullback. So you just need to manage the 4-hour ranges there at the moment on pound yen. Can you see 62% retracement, a 79% retracement within that trend? All right, don't go trying to buy it at the top of any move because you could get caught at the top of the market. Is look for a pullback. Does the pullback hold? Can you see a setup to buy to move back up? That's what would be with the tack to take. Be very aware though that it's very overextended. Something might come into the market, whether it's something comes in about the yen pairs to move them down, but I mean, it's overextended at the moment. All right, let's move on to the Aussie pairs. Of course, we've got the CPI data coming out. To the day charts. Right, let me just get rid of that fib. And we'll go and have a look at the monthly at the moment. So the monthly trend, I was saying earlier in the month, is down. It is still down, and there's the potential that we could be forming here a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. That resistance there is at 96.87. Of course, we can move off and through. The New Zealand yen's moved above its high, but this isn't doing that at the moment. So that left shoulder's at 96.87 if it's a left shoulder. So monthly trend is down because it's correcting all this high to low movement down. It's correcting all the way back up on the monthly, but on the weekly, that is in an uptrend. And on the daily, we're starting to show a bit of a downtrend, lower top, lower bottom, and we're almost having a 79% retracement of this range here. Now, all of last week, and I put out on Telegram, look for opportunities to buy at this weekly level of support, 95.73, and you can see there that it held for quite a while, dipped below, but again, it's held back above today. But we do have a lower top, lower bottom. You just don't want to be selling. If you're going to sell this in line with that day chart trend, which is only small at the moment, don't be selling into support. Now, the 4-hour, we have a drop, and this is moving back up. And there's a 79% level that we've just touched, just short of 96.53 resistance from over the left-hand side, somewhere over here. So whilst that 4-hour trend in this area is up, it's retracement of this whole move down. And if you know anything about Gartley's, there's potentially a Gartley pattern in here where of the larger range is a 79% level, and then of this upward move here, there will be a 127 extension. It's not perfectly overlapping at the 79% level, but it's in the area there. So we have an uptrend move culminating at the 127 extension and the 79% of the larger range there. So difficult to trade an Aussie pair at the moment with the CPI data coming out tomorrow, but putting that aside, this looks very much like we've moved down, and we could retest this area tomorrow after the CPI data. We've moved down, we're running back up to the 79% level. That 96.53 level is a daily resistance level over here. All right. Are we forming a 79% retracement to move down this way in line with the day chart trend? Don't forget the day chart trend is now down. And if we just quickly head back to the day chart, this very strong upward move here, we could be moving all the way back now to the start of the break north. All right, there's an imbalance in here. So we could be reclaiming all of this over the next month or two, if that's what the market wants to do. All right, so to the 15-minute chart, I will just get rid of my lines because they don't work too well. So you can look over the next 24 hours, especially after news. Do we retest 96.50 area, the 79% fib? There it is. In fact, we've got a pip short. And we're heading back up there at the moment. So I will just be monitoring that 96.50 level, 96.53 day resistance after the CPI data tomorrow. I don't know where price will be, obviously, when that comes around. But if we're down here somewhere, we could spike up to there. And then what happens? All right, the Aussie. Again, difficult to trade ahead of the CPI, but it's interesting that, and we could just be dealing with a complete false break to the upside this month, and we could just swing all the way back down to the bottom side, moving into the new month next week. But at the moment, the weekly structure has changed to up. So it's worth making a mental note that we are now in a weekly uptrend theoretically, and we're pulling back maybe to put in a higher bottom somewhere. And the most obvious level here is weekly support here at 65.73. That could be a left shoulder inverted head. A right shoulder could form here at 65.73 down to the 79% fib. All right, so there's your left shoulder potentially. There's the inverted head. So the area to watch, this is worth watching if the CPI data spikes down to 65.73 to 65.52. This is where the right shoulder could form. For then, if that weekly trend is going to hold, we've moved up. We're potentially at the moment pulling back. That's the area for the pullback. And then are we coming up this way? Now this could be just a complete false break, and we actually then completely unravel back to the downside, depending on what CPI data does. But at the moment, if we're trying to pull together an idea of trends, patterns, that's what I'm seeing now at the moment. All right. Now, putting aside the pattern, yes, we could get support down at support there at 65.73. We could also, if this is a complete false break move and a failure, we've moved down to here, we could come back up to the 68.05 to 18 area here and put in the lower top. 62% overlaps at 68.08, 68.05 resistance. So there are actually two sides of the market here, which either side could work. I think if we move to 65.73 and hold, then you're trading up for the long term for a break back above 65, sorry, 68.05. So if we move down to here, hold, you're trying to trade all the way back up this way. If we get a snap rally back up to there after the news tomorrow, then we start to hold here, we could be forming a lower top to move down this way. In any event, we could still have a head and shoulder pattern. We could come up, we could come back up here, hold, we could move down to there, hold, form right shoulder and go that way. All right, so there's a couple of scenarios, or more than one scenario there that could happen on the Aussie dollar, depending on the data releases. Just be very aware where the strong levels of support and resistance are, because those are the levels really to look for reversals back the other way. All right. At the moment, I would be watching those two areas. I've got no way of knowing what the market will do tomorrow. I'm sure, though, it's going to react quite strongly one way or the other. But which way it's going to react, I don't know. Slav is saying the Aussie has a similar pattern to the ASX. I know the ASX is sold aggressively down. I've got those on my other charts. ASX is here. I mean, that's back down to support after folks moving up to here. So it's very much data dependent and how the market reacts. So we just, that's the way you just have to trade it. Well, I mean, you're assuming this will slide. Maybe it won't slide. Maybe it's going to get support here and just stay range bound, and then trade back up to the top of the range. I mean, the Aussie dollar, for example, here in the day chart, could just be bound. You know, we false broke below here. I thought once we false broke below here, we were coming down here, but clearly we didn't. So we false broke below there, moved up and false maybe broke above here. Now we might just trade between here and here for quite a while. And the ASX could just trade in a channel for quite a while. So we'll just have to wait and see. But those are the reference points to watch quite clearly. Another level to watch would be as well 66.74 day support. So if we can move to the 50-minute chart at the moment, we have had, if you want to trade today, we've had this, go to the 4-hour chart, this impulsive move up today, higher bottom, higher top. Pulling back towards the 79% level, you could be looking down at the central pivot point in the 79% level at 66.77 for intraday support today to move back up. Still got a good, I don't know how many hours to go, a good 15 hours before the news event comes out, something like that. So, but even tomorrow, if we're up here tomorrow, when the news comes out, day support could be support to hold to then further move back up as well. So there's a few levels to watch. All right, we've covered the euro pairs and we've covered the pound pairs, New Zealand yen. So New Zealand yen last week, it actually closed below the monthly top here. But of course, this week we're moving above. So we just need to see where the next level of resistance could be. And we could still end up with a false break of where we're at, but it is moving up and above. And I think for all these yen pairs, potentially, just a general statement, because the Aussie yen is moving down at the moment, but a general statement is interest rates very much favor the left-hand side currency on all these yen crosses, because the yen interest rate is next to zero, about 0.5% maximum. So the carry trade holding the Aussie currency, or in this case, the New Zealand currency versus the yen, you get the carry. So the carry trade is definitely on these yen crosses. So worth understanding that, you know, movements to the short side could be short term. Now, that's the next level of resistance now, 89.68. We're moving above this monthly top at 88.16. That weekly trend is up. All we've really done last week is dip down to the last weekly top. Yes, we were negative and closed below that high, but we're above now. And this is moving into an uptrend. It's a little bit overextended, this move here at the moment. And I don't like where it is. just so high up. With it closing below that high last week, I don't like that, but it is holding to a day chart uptrend. And now a dip this week, now that we've moved above last week's high, clear reference point for support now is that monthly top here at 88.16. I'm never buying at the top of a move, so I need to see a pullback. This last 4-hour dip got support at 88.16. The current 4-hour candle that's dipped down is getting support on last week's resistance here, last week's high. So maybe that's as much of a dip you're going to get now, and it's just continuing up. But I would keep with a very regimented routine of looking for a dip on the 4-hour chart range, drag fib up, across the range. That's the range at the moment. Keep moving up. If price keeps moving up, and look for 62.79% pullback, and hopefully you get an overlap with some critical level of support. We start to move up nicely over the next 24 hours. Look for a pullback to this area of support at 88.55. All right. New Zealand dollar. Ultimately, at the moment, it is in a downtrend on the weekly, and we're kind of having a 62% failure at the moment of the range here. However, we are getting a bit consolidatory. Today chart, it is showing you lower tops and bottoms. And I said this morning, we're getting support here between day support and weekly support. 61.34 down to 61.10, and we may come back up to retest 62.03. Pretty much traded up to 62, I think, very close to 61.99.9. And moving to a 4-hour chart, what you're going to see is draw a fib across just last week's range, which is that these dashed lines, my red dashed lines, that's the candle of last week. We've moved in between 62 to 79% area, and it's obviously struggling. Last week's move up struggled above 62.03. Today we can't quite get to 62, so we might just see 62 traded, especially after the CPI data tomorrow for the Aussie. This will react, I'm sure, as well. So this is a slightly different trend picture perspective of the Aussie dollar, because we have a weekly downtrend still intact. That move back up this way, this could be the lower top forming, and we're just trading at the moment back inside last week's range. That high to low, I'm sure that move up at the moment is a 79% level. There you go. With your daily resistance, so if we could just trade at resistance would be perfect, or at least a 62. So I'll be watching up there. May have already failed there, but 62.03 is 79% level. The fib level up there, I think, is the area. That's where the sellers are clearly watching. Now, we may have already failed for the week. That could be the high of the week. You could also be watching a fib drawn from across there and be looking a little bit shorter at 61.92, 79% fib. But I would just be patient, see if we can just hit up there at resistance and fail. I will be waiting for tomorrow's Aussie CPI data and then see where this sits after that as well. So the downside at the moment, if we move back down, we could stay range bound. So we could just move back down to 61.34 to 61.10, hold, and then move back up. This could just stay range bound if it really wants to. You can see the ranges are getting smaller, tighter. We might just stay between support and resistance. So if that's the case, you want to be a seller at resistance, a buyer down at support at the moment. All right, understand the structure. So I would be watching, as I said, that range there, up here for short. If we got down to 61.34, starts to hold, then the opportunity down here is to buy at support on a setup to trade back up. All right, dollar Canadian, we obviously have the CPI data coming out, so it's going to be tricky till that subsides. Now, last week, if I just take you through the levels, this was monthly support. This was weekly support. We broke below those levels, and this is perfect support and resistance. Support becoming resistance. Last week, we rallied back to monthly resistance held, rallied back up to weekly resistance held as well in the same week. And we moved below daily resistance. It was resistance intraday yesterday at 131.77. So I would be watching on the 4-hour chart at the moment. It's a very small range there. I would use last week's high and be monitoring. Now we could come back up and just simply hold at the 31.77 level, but if I'm using last week's range or last week's high down to the current high, sorry, down to the current low, because we've broken last week's low, I can see the 62 levels at 32.10, weekly resistance at 132.23. So that would be a very nice area there. If we can get a rally, that would be, and there's a previous high there, previous high here. That would be a very good area to watch for a rally point. For the high of the week to come in, look for an opportunity to trade down from there. Now, of course, once the CPI news comes out, we may just drop or spike straight up. So that's how it all looks at the moment. How it will look when the CPI data comes out, who knows? If it just moves down, I'll just drag the fib down. If it spikes up, I'll have to reassess. All right. I mean, it could spike up to 132.62, which is your monthly resistance level as well. So I would look to weekly, then monthly resistance at the moment. The day resistance isn't that far away. So if it gets volatile, it'll probably jump above that level. All right, dollar franc, which is very range bound, but it is, I'll just get rid of a line or two. That's monthly chart. We're holding on monthly support here. Whilst we have a lower top on the weekly, maybe we're going to put in a higher bottom here. There's your monthly support here. 89.26, that's the level to watch. All right, 89.26. Just want to refresh this chart. Came down there yesterday. We've been down there today, but we're holding above. And it's getting quite narrow in its range here. It's kind of holding on top of monthly support. Daily resistance 90.02 from over here is holding the top of the market. So not the best pair at the moment. If you want to trade this pair, you have to trade at the bottom of the range for a buy and maybe sell down from the top of the range. But the more we keep holding on monthly support, which is obviously a stronger level than daily resistance, there's the chance that if you can buy very close to monthly support, trade up, resistance may break to the upside because this is just daily resistance. It's not as strong as monthly support. And especially if we see the dollar index move up and put in a higher bottom, and with the already formed higher top on the dollar index, if we put in a higher bottom on the dollar index, that's going to put in on the day chart here. And that is a higher bottom to that bottom, and that is a higher top to that top. It is very range bound. So we may be putting in a further higher bottom and moving up to a further higher top there. So I think the better opportunities are buying at support down at 89.26 or even down to 8900 if it can move. You know, the area of support is quite clear. That's last week's low to monthly support there. That's the area to watch for a buyer. Dollar yen continues to move up with the old carry trade. He's just trying to move above 143.52, which is daily resistance. I was hoping for a pullback to monthly support at 142.17, but it's just not pulling back. So you have to look to your 4-hour charts. Some of these 4-hour ranges are rather small. It's not easy when it's not giving you a healthy pullback. Monitor these minor 4-hour ranges at the moment for a pullback. Keep dragging that up if it keeps moving up, and look for a 62.79% pullback. All right, that's the current 4-hour range. 62% level. Let's say we just move down now. 62% level overlaps nicely with your broken daily resistance. So 143.53 to 143.52 here would be a good area of support intraday to watch if you could pull back. All right, let's drop into gold, which, let's get rid of that fib. You know, from the highest time frame, that is a triple top potentially. 2 negative months. Is it going to fall through the downside? At the moment, it's getting some support from the historical monthly high over here. That's at 1920, and I'm just using the more closer weekly level as support here at 1917, but it's the same area. 1920, 1917. Now, we have started to move and clearly move below that weekly top. Now we're contending with this area of support. But the day chart trend is lower tops, lower bottoms. I would monitor that range. Don't go selling into support, so to the 4-hour chart. Yeah, the 79% level, 1955 is only then 4 away from 1959 weekly resistance. So that would be the area to watch if it could be friendly. That is the highest probability area to sell, to make profit, to move back down to the support level that we're holding at. This is very flat and rangy here at the moment, the 4-hour. Clearly not yet wanting to move below 1917 and 1920. So looking up at 1955 to 59 would be the best area if it can offer you that. All right, 1917, so 1920 down to 1917, very strong support. So, you know, selling real close to that, we're real close now, you know, not a great idea. It may be even a better, whilst it's counter trend to the daily, this is support here. So if you see, if you trade at itself a 50-minute chart and you see your 50-minute entry that triggers a buy, this is support. This could be moving up to there, to then maybe hold to move down in line with the day chart trend. All right, those are the areas I think you need to watch on gold. All right, any questions? The market this week doesn't have a massive amount of news. It may stay a little bit range bound. There's no massive US news coming out. There are US news items coming out, but next week we have the FOMC meeting minutes, I believe, from memory, early Thursday morning, and then we have the job figures next Friday. So if no US news comes out critically changed from forecast, and you know, US news, we have the CB consumer confidence coming out midnight, moving into Wednesday. We do have Fed Chair Powell speaking tomorrow, 11:30, and he does speak again 4:30 in the morning on Thursday. Final GDP, 10:30 p.m. Thursday for the US, and unemployment claims. Unemployment claims can definitely drive the market. They're definitely picking up. And we've got US core PC price index Friday evening, 10:30. So they have the potential to drive the market, these US items, but we don't have any until midnight tonight. And if that doesn't affect the market too much, then we could be range bound maybe till Fed Chair Powell wants to speak. And even if he doesn't say too much, we're waiting for some news to add a little bit of stimulus to the market. But, you know, if you're trading the Aussie, be very aware of the CPI data coming out tomorrow. Anticipating maybe having further interest rate hikes, I think, on the Aussie pair at the moment. All right, which would lead to bullish price action. But we'll have to wait and see what CPI brings. All right, any final questions while you're thinking of a question? Then coming up this week on the seminars, webinars from me. if I can get this to update. I'll tell you what it is anyway. Wednesday, we have Fibonacci. Going to go through that Wednesday, 7 p.m. Thursday, more live market analysis. Okay. So sometimes it will refresh for me, sometimes it won't. It's not refreshing. So I'll just bring up my PowerPoint. That's tomorrow's webinar. Just head over to the webinar page to register your interest. If you have time, look forward to seeing you then. Okay, everybody. So it's a little bit slow going. So it is a question of, at the moment, waiting for pullbacks to the best areas if the pairs are range bound. I do like on the euro, particularly, whether or not we can get up there. We are still trading up at the moment, a bit positive still on the day. 109.70 up to 109.75. We could get up to 110, but up close to 110 where we failed last week, we could be seeing this left shoulder, head, right shoulder forming. You know, the day chart structure here did move to a lower bottom last week. Are we coming up to put in a lower top? So approximately 109.70 up to, say, the 110 level. We could maybe top out there on the euro dollar this week. So definitely got my eye on that. All right, everybody, have a great week. If you have the time, look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Slav, thank you. Good night to you. New Zealand dollar, any interest rates? I don't believe we got an interest rate this week. That interest rates for New Zealand come out every 6 weeks rather than monthly. So I don't see one this. There's not one this week. We can quickly skim through. New Zealand, New Zealand, New Zealand. Not one next week. Wednesday the 12th is the interest rate decision for the New Zealand. So we have a good 2.5 weeks to go before then. All right. Okay, everybody. Thanks very much. Thank you as always. Look forward to seeing you next time.